These cute little guys are monsters because both of them are dreaming of becoming a queen. So, how to play when you're dealing with passed pawns in chess? So, well, if you're on the defending side, like the white pieces over here, then the first strategy is to find a way to stop the advance of these pawns. And the way to do that is to block their path with a minor piece, and the best minor piece would be a knight. Now, why a knight and why not something else? See, if you block the path of this pawn with either a queen or a rook, then in some cases your opponent would be able to attack the major piece with one of his minor piece, in which case you will have to move the piece. Therefore, blocking with a knight is a much better idea. Also, when you're putting a knight in front of the passed pawn, that knight isn't just stopping the pawn but is also controlling squares where the adjacent pawns might come to help this passed pawn. So therefore, white over here plays knight to e6 check. The idea to give check is basically white is just maneuvering his knight to these squares so that it can place itself in front of this passed pawn. Black plays king to f6 and now knight to c5, aiming to head over here while also attacking black's queen. Queen moves to e7 and now white is free to play knight to d3, but in the game, white first decided to pin this bishop over here on this file. So rook b1, pinning the bishop, the rook is unprotected over here, so opponent played rook to b6, getting it to a square where it is protected by its own pawn, and now the bishop is free to move, and now knight to d3, blocking the path of the passed pawn, while also controlling this key square, so the c pawn really cannot advance over here. Black played queen to e4, pinning the knight to the white's rook. And now if you're thinking, hey, the bishop is under double attack, white can just grab this free bishop. So if you play rook takes bishop, rook takes rook, knight takes rook, then you haven't actually won material because black can now win back its lost material with queen to b1 check, forking both the pieces. King moves and the knight is gone. And now you have reached a very drawish position. So let's go back. Therefore, white over here played rook to e1, attacking the queen over here. Queen moved to d5, asking for a trade of queens, but since white is down in material by 1 point and black has 2 connected strong passed pawns, it's not a good idea to exchange queens over here because you really need your queen to be on the board and do everything in its power to help stop the promotion of these pawns. So therefore, white moved the queen to a4. And now bishop c3, attacking the rook, and now white is like, I don't care, you take my rook, I will take your rook, but let me just grab this pawn over here. Now both the rooks are under attack, but by playing in such a way, what white has done is that he has created his own passed pawn on the a file. So, when you are on the defending side, another key strategy to execute is to play actively and try to create either your own passed pawn or any kind of bigger threat like a checkmate so that the opponent is busy dealing with your threats and will not really get the time to execute his own plans. Here in the game, the opponent played bishop takes rook, queen takes rook, and now bishop to c3. White plays a4. Now white is threatening to get his own queen on the board. Black plays queen to e4, attacking the blockader of this passed pawn. And now what should white play over here? Well, white really isn't interested in playing defensive over here. So he starts attacking black's king with the move queen to d8 check. King moves and now queen to c7 check. King moves again. Queen d6 check. And now black asks for a trade of queens. Because what black is thinking is that if the queens come off the board, then it would be very easy for black to win this game because black has a long range piece, a bishop, which can move on any side of the board, plus black has 2 connected strong passed pawns. And white's knight would not be able to stop these pawns as well as take care of the promotion of this pawn. So it would be an easy win for black over here. So black is like, hey, do you want to get the queens off the board? White is like, I'm not a fool to do that. So he just moves the queen and gives a check again. Black blocks the check with his queen again, asking for a trade of queens. Check again. King moves and now a5. White is threatening to queen his own pawn. And it looks like that white is giving up a pawn for free. But hey, black can't do that because if black takes the pawn, then it would be a horrible mistake because white can now fork black's pieces with queen e5 check. Queen interposes and now the bishop is lost. So obviously that pawn is not for free. So after this pawn push, black realized that he really needs to stop this pawn. So black played queen to a2, trying to double attack this pawn. But did you notice in the last few moves, black had been completely busy in guarding his king from the attacks of the white queen as well as trying to stop this pawn over here. Black is not at all getting any time to focus on the advancement of these strong connected pass pawns. So when you're playing on the defensive side of the game, you should aim to play very actively and try to create your own set of threats so that your opponent remains busy in stopping the execution of your threats. So queen g7 check, king moves, and now white plays knight to e5, threatening to checkmate over here. And here at this point of time, black resigned from the game, because no matter what black plays over here, either he is losing material or he is getting checkmated soon. And now let's look at one more example. Black is up a pawn in material, but white has a strong passed pawn on the d file. And now white plays d6, just getting one more step closer to the queening square. And black thought, since knight is the best blockader for the pass pawn, so without doing any actual calculations, he immediately plays knight to d7. Well, knights are good blockaders, but just because I've said they are good blockaders, you just can't blindly use them without doing precise calculations on the board, because every chess position is different. And you have to calculate precisely before blindly executing any strategy. And now you must be wondering, why am I saying that? Because a few minutes ago, I just told you that knights are the best blockaders. So why is this even a mistake? Why is playing knight to d7 a bad move in this situation? Well, the reason is that white can now successfully attack this blockader and also launch a deadly attack against black king. How? Well, the attack starts with queen to c4 check. King moved and now queen c8 check. It's a fork attack. So black is forced to block the check with his queen, trying to defend both the pieces. But white can now increase more pressure with bishop to e7 check. King moves and now queen to c4 check. King to g7 and now queen to e7, getting very close to the opponent king. And here black is so tied up trying to stop this pawn, trying to protect his king, the queen is unguarded over here, that it doesn't matter what he chooses to play in this position, everything is just losing. So black here plays g5. If black chooses to play any other move, doesn't matter, he can just continue with bishop f6 check, attacking the king as well as revealing a discovered attack on the undefended queen over here. And here at this point of time, black resigned. Why? Because if he takes the bishop, then queen takes queen, knight takes queen, and now d7, attacking the knight and threatening to queen over here. And there is no way you can stop the queening of this pawn. And black is losing anyway. Let's go back. If king tries to go on the f8 square, then white can now play bishop g7 check. King takes bishop is forced and now the queen is gone anyway. Let's go back. And if black moves a king to any one of these squares, then black is losing the queen anyway. So therefore, let's go back to the original position and see what mistake black made. So in this situation, although we know that knights are good blockaders, but here there is no hurry to place the knight in front of the pass pawn, because this knight is already sitting in a place where it is able to control the d7 square. So in case the pawn moves, knight can immediately capture it. And if bishop takes knight, then queen can take the bishop with a check, with a fork attack on both the pieces, and black should be doing fine over here. So what should have black played if not knight to d7? Well, knight is already doing its job of controlling the d7 square. So the best move to play over here is queen to e2. Why queen to e2? Well, putting a lot of pressure on this pawn, but at the same time controlling the key square, the c4 square, which is available for the white queen to check the black king. Also, by being on the e2 square, black is also defending his knight over here. So it's a multi-purpose move. So if black had played queen to e2, the position would have remained equal, and with correct play, black could have drawn this position. Now let's look at examples of how to deal with pass pawns when you are on the attacking side. Now what do I mean by when you are on the attacking side? Well, by being on the attacking side means that you have the pass pawn and your opponent is trying his best to stop the promotion of this pawn. So how to play in such situations? Well, in such situations you should always try to attack the blockader of the pass pawns. Now let's look at this example. It was white's turn to move. So white played f7, pushing his pawn one more square closer to the queening square, and now black's rook is stuck over here. So he really needs to do something. So black tries to activate his knight on this side of the board. So he plays knight to d5. And now white really wants to push this pawn forward, but the rook is blocking. So how do we get rid of this rook? Well, the simple way is to attack it. Always try to attack the blockator of your passed pawn. So in this case, white played bishop to a3, attacking the rook. Now you understand why blocking the passed pawn with one of your major pieces is not a good idea, because the minor piece can then attack it and then you will be forced to move. If there was a knight sitting over here or a bishop sitting over here with a rook protecting it, things would have been still better for black over here. But since the rook is under attack and it is attacked by a minor piece, black will now have to lose material and subsequently the game. Now let's look at this example. This game was played between Mikhail Botvinnik and Jose Raul Capablanca. Botvinnik has a strong passed pawn on the e file and he really wants to get his knight over here and then here so that the knight can do a very good job of blockading this pawn. And while the knight blocks the pawn, Capablanca also wants to start pushing these pawns because he too has a strong passed pawn on the a file. But Botvinnik was aware of this idea. He knew that if he gives Capablanca any single chance, then he will be able to successfully stop his pawn as well as activate his own set of threats over here. So, therefore, he immediately played queen to e5, pinning the knight to the black's king. And now what can Capablanca do over here? His knight is pinned and in the next move, Botvinnik is threatening to play e7. So Capablanca played queen to e7 in order to block the path of the pawn. But we all know that's not a good idea, because if you try to block the path of the pawn with a major piece and if your opponent has minor pieces on the board, then it would be easier for your opponent to attack your major piece with one of their minor pieces. And that's what Botvinnik does over here. So can you guess what Botvinnik played next? I'll give you 10 seconds to think. Well, he played a shocking move and did a bold sacrifice with bishop to a3. Yes, he's attacking the blockader of this pawn, but he's sacrificing it. There is no piece or pawn protecting this bishop over here. But guess what? This is a brilliant move. Why? Because this sacrifice allows white to clear up the path for his passed pawn. Capablanca took this free bishop over here and now the e7 square has been vacated for this pawn. So that brings me to strategy number 2. Consider sacrifice. If you want to push your passed pawn and if your opponent is blockading your pawn's path, then do not hesitate to sacrifice a piece either to eliminate or distract the blockator from the path of your pawn. So after this queen captures bishop, Botvinnik played another brilliant move. No, he didn't hurry to push this pawn, because if he immediately pushes the pawn, then black can easily stop it with queen to a4. The queening square is well taken care of and it would be hard time for white to promote this pawn. So obviously Botvinnik did not hurry to push this pawn, but came up with another brilliant sacrifice, knight to h5 check. Why is he sacrificing his knight? Well, because after pawn captures knight, the g file is semi-open and white's queen can now start attacking black king. So queen g5 check, king moved, and now Botvinnik regained his sacrificed piece with a check, king moved, and now e7 just at the right time. Now the threat is queen f8 checkmate. How can black stop this checkmate? So he started giving random checks to white, starting with queen c1 check, king f2, queen c2 check, king g3, queen d3 check. King is just moving up the board so that there comes a point where black is not able to check the white king. Queen e4 check, king takes pawn, queen e2 check, king to h4, queen e4 check, g4, queen e1 check, king h5, and now there is no way black can check the white king anymore and there is this checkmate threat over here. Therefore, at this point of time, Capablanca resigned from the game. Like this video and subscribe to my channel if you learned something valuable today. And now let's move on to the question of the day. So here is a fantastic situation on the board. Black's king is doing a very good job of stopping this passed pawn over here. These pawns are mutually blocking each other and white has just played b5 and is attacking both the c6 as well as the a6 pawn. So what should black play over here? There is only one move which wins the game for black over here. All other moves will either make the game drawish or will lose for black. So can you find the winning move for black over here? Let me know your answers in the comments box and I'll see you in the next video.